All right, welcome. This is actually a different episode, not a 10 minutes with. We've had a nice long streak for several months of our 10 minutes with. This is our first full show that we've done in quite a while now. We want to introduce to you currently a correspondent for ABC News in the Washington Bureau. You've seen him on ABC World News Tonight, Good Morning America, and probably on your local ABC News affiliate at one point. So please welcome Andrew Dymbert.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on. Just real quick, we stumbled across each other probably 3 or 4 years ago while you were out working in Portland. I think you were covering a Portland Timbers match, and it's just we followed your account, watched you kind of progress, which we'll get into. And I finally like, you know what, I'm going to ask him to come on the show. So I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, awesome. I love your guys' page too, and I've followed some of your work as well. So.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
And finally connect.
It's funny too because my wife and I we watched our local ABC News affiliate here in Phoenix, and while we were trying to coordinate this and get this arranged, they'll show a story that you were reporting on, and I'm like, I gotta talk to Andrew. And my wife just looks out like, what are you talking about? But I get that look a lot, so it's It's, as Kate is sitting over there like, yeah. So
Yeah, we do that a lot with you, don't we?
Yes, we do.
A lot of weird stuff. I'm the normal one here.
No, not true. So, today, we this is a little bit different of an episode. Andrew is, as you see, covers a lot of, being in DC covers a lot of political topics. We're not a political show by any means, but, Andrew's coming along the way, has covered a lot of sports in his past previously. And this is more to talk about how he's progressed through his career of TV journalism and provide those stories and experiences for you if you're looking to break into TV journalism. So let's jump right in and get started. What was the point that you decided, in your life that journalism and broadcasting was what you wanted to do with your career?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I was always a big sports fan, so sports has always been a part of my life. And when I first got to college, I was a business major because I just thought that that's like something that you do, And interestingly enough, back in the day before he was this big ESPN personality, Dan Le Batard had this local Miami radio show, this just kind of, quirky radio show that nobody really knew about. But I was a big listener. I was a huge fan. And so was my brother. And ironically, they used to do this thing, which was like a celebrity poker tournament in South Florida, before Le Batard was actually a celebrity. So they just bring in all these people from Miami that weren't actually celebrities. And it was ironic. And it was this just local event that if you listen to the show, you come out, you play, it's for charity, whatever. So me and my brother, we went to go play once. And I actually sat down at Dan Le Batard's table, and Israel Gutierrez and some other now well-known sports columnists were there. Jorge Sedano, I believe, played in it as well. It's just like all these guys who started locally. And we just started talking, and I realized all these guys loved what they did. And I wasn't in love with being a business major. And so I started up kind of a digital relationship with Israel Gutierrez. And I asked him, how do you crack in? And he mentioned to me, look, just do whatever you can at school. Just write and see whatever you can do sports related. He's like, just get it going. And, you can even send me some stuff if you want. And so he suggested I start maybe writing for the local paper there. So I did. And then I started covering women's softball. And then that turned into me covering football. And I would send him my articles and he would edit them. And then I was like, you know what, this is what I want to, I was still a business major. I was like, but this is what I want to do. So I changed majors and kind of went from there.
That's very cool. And it's like, having a mentor like that is always good, but to see your mentor also progress and become famous on the national stage, I'm sure that really, it probably meant a lot to you seeing him progress as he did.
Definitely. And I also regret, and I do give this advice to young journalists too. I lost touch with like Israel Gutierrez, for example. And I don't, I should have kept that relationship going early on. And I had kind of a knack for doing that. It was almost too intimidating. Like, oh, these guys don't want to waste time on me, just this teenager. Like, they're bigger than that. I think at the time he was a Palm Beach Post or Miami Herald columnist, which were still like big to me, And I always tell young journalists, just make sure if you do meet somebody that is successful and takes an interest in you, make sure you just keep that relationship authentic, and keep it going. So I know that a few years later I had run into Izzy actually, and I remembered him, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, that's right. He's like, what happened? Asking me why I didn't email him more. And so, yeah, but it is cool to see all those guys like just move on, and also to see that show just kind of explode and now be like a national TV show and all that. And back in the day, it wasn't like that. It was just this quirky morning radio show that I happened to love, and I just realized all these guys were having fun doing what they loved, and I said to myself, that's what I want to do.
Kate, I'm going to hand it over to you.
So, did you have any past experiences in high school that helped drive your decision to go?
No. And that was another regret of mine too. My school actually was really well known for in high school, for its morning announcements and news program. They had a teacher and everything, this whole setup, and I was never a part of any of that. And it was something else that I wish I had gotten into early, but I guess they say, better late than never. It wasn't until college where I really started to pick up whatever I could, whether it was radio, writing, or eventually TV. So when I originally went to Florida State University, but I dropped out for personal reasons. And when I got back into college, I decided to transfer to the University of Miami. And then when I was there, I picked up everything that I could. And that included starting to do news, which I always thought I wanted to be a sports reporter. When I went to UM, I double majored in sport administration and broadcast journalism. But when I started to tell stories on the news side of things, just to round out, I guess, my background, I started to gravitate more towards news and less towards sports.
And we didn't even mention this on the start of the show, but I mean, just the other night, you put something on your Instagram page that you went from college dropout at one time to doing a live remote on the grounds of the White House. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, first off, congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Just see yourself like skipping around here, but like what goes through your mind when you're standing on the grounds of the White House?
Don't mess up. I think that's every reporter goes through that, one way or another. But you get comfortable after doing this for a while that you hardly, I guess, get nervous anymore. I guess that's a big question. I get, do you get nervous when you get live? Well, you do 1 million live shots over 8 years. No. But then you're at the White House and it feels like your very first time. So I just tried to focus on the story, and then later, like after everything and the dust settled and the day was done, then I tried to reflect personally on just kind of what that meant.
And again, like I said, not a political show. We're not getting into discussions of anyone's opinions on the administration or not. But I mean, you've been in the Oval Office. You asked a question right to the President of the United States. Like, I mean, that's arguably the most powerful person in the world, and you're less than 10 feet away asking this person a question. I mean, was it the first time you did that? Like, what goes through your mind when that happens?
So interestingly enough, the first time that I was in the briefing room and I had asked a question, the president started to respond, and then I interrupted him kind of just by accident because I wanted to clarify my question. And I thought, oh boy, like I just interrupted the president. And again, not to have opinions or anything like that, but just who doesn't matter who the president. Doesn't matter
who it is. You interrupted the president.
Interrupted him, and so I was like, I had this moment where I was like, oh boy, like he's either going to move on or lash out at me, and that did not happen. But I would say the experiences, my past experiences kind of led up to that. And I felt very comfortable. Like I wasn't nervous or anything. And it starts at that local news level in my background. You start by interviewing city council members, and then maybe a mayor, and then maybe a representative, and then maybe a governor. And then the next thing you know, you're interviewing the president, and it's no different than interviewing any of those other people. And it's just kind of that comfortability that comes from tons of reps and just doing this for so long.
So what type of internships did you have starting out?
Internships were huge. I didn't even know really, it sounds ignorant, but I didn't even know really what an internship was when I got to college. It wasn't even on my radar. I mean, my whole thing was like, get the best grades you can, and that's kind of ingrained in us from high school, right? Like your GPA, your SAT score, that is not real life. I'll say this: when I graduated college and I was looking for jobs in this industry, not a single employer asked me what my GPA was or what classes I took. All they wanted to know were internships and experiences that you had, because when you're graduating college, you have no real professional experience, right? I mean, chances are you don't. So what they look for is your internships and other experiences. So when I was interviewing, even for jobs, that I did not get, the questions were about, oh, we saw you did a news, you did your station or your college news program. Tell us about that. Tell us about how when you wrote for, the Tallahassee Democrat back when I was at FSU, tell us about this. They never asked me about my classes or even my major, really. They wanted to know about experience within the industry. So what I would say to any college student or young aspiring journalist would be to just get your hands on as much work outside of school as possible. I mean, obviously grades are important. And then, there are some people who will go and get a master's degree in this field, which is something I don't have, but I would recommend as well. And that is where probably your grades matter obviously more, but I can't stress enough that it's really the experiences and the internships just in the industry that will make or break you. And one of my internships was for the Miami Hurricanes football team. It was convenient because I went to the university, I was a student there, but in my capacity as an intern, I was able to write stories, put together pieces, on camera. They had some old camera equipment that they let me do, and I would put together stories. And I took those stories that aired on the the Hurricane Sports website, and now I had kind of a resume. Even though I had no real professional experience and I wasn't getting paid, I have these stories where I'm covering a major Division I football program.
So I like I said before we started airing, I was doing my prep, snooping around, and I noticed that you actually, one of your internships was at Fox News. Mm-hmm. And you always hear the stereotypical, oh, it's printing papers, copies, coffee for people. I mean, what was the internship like when you go into a major news organization like that as a college student?
So at first, that's kind of what it was at first. And I interned on this late night, like 2 a.m. show that actually doesn't exist anymore. And it was more of like this satirical political show. And it was really cool because they had stand-up comedians on there and like C-list actors and celebrities, and it was just this quirky like late night news show. And at first that's kind of all I did, but I really wanted to take advantage of the fact that it was this small show on this major network, and it was a really small, tight crew behind the scenes. And I realized like, oh, there's a lot more I can do here than just, if one of my tasks was to fill the water for all the guests. I remember that. I was like, I can do more than this, like anybody can do this. So I really just pushed to try to do as much as I can. I told them that I had a writing background, if they would let me write a monologue or a story for somebody, and slowly but surely they did. So I started by writing talking points for some of the guests and give them some background on what was going to be discussed. And then that kind of evolved into a little more writing. And then I also, a lot of just life happens to be luck. I also kind of got lucky in that one day, like 3 people quit the show for various reasons. One got pregnant, one got a better job, and one was getting out of the industry. It was just totally coincidental that they all happened to be leaving at the same time. And there was this massive void that they couldn't just hire, 2 production assistants and a booker overnight. So they had asked me, I was really originally supposed to only intern like 2 or 3 days a week. And then the other days of the week, I was supposed to do these classes for UM. And I got in touch with the school and I said, hey, they want me to work 5 days a week now. Is that okay? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Go for it. And so from there, now I actually became like a production assistant. Here I am as like this, 19, 20-year-old kid being a production assistant. That these are like jobs that people, actually get with professional experience. So I was lucky in that regard, but you have to create those opportunities for yourself as well, is what I would tell people. Just, when you get these internships or these entry-level jobs, just say yes to get your hands on everything. If there's something that you see, like, hey, I can do this, raise your hand and let them know. No one's going to say, whoa, they hired you or they brought you on for a reason. And I would say just got to be hungry and make it known. And, there were a lot of late nights too that I worked there. There was a collection of interns, like 50 of us, and they had the same schedule as me in the beginning, that they would only work 2 or 3 days a week. And then the other days they'd have to take a sort of like a class to fulfill whatever. But afterwards, after 5 o'clock, all the interns would get together and hang out and do that sort of thing. And I put that on the table. That's not why I'm here. So while everybody else was after they clocked out of their internship at 5 o'clock and were going out for happy hours and enjoying New York City, I stayed late every day to try to work as much as I could on that show. And it went a really long way. Somebody noticed, a production assistant there remembered how hard I worked. And when I got back to school for my senior year, I got a cold call from that person that said, hey, there's this new local TV show that the Fox affiliates are trying to get off the ground in New York City. Would you like to be a part of it? So it's like not even something that I applied for. And then if it wasn't for that, I'd probably just not be doing what I am today.
So you literally, from your experiences, ended up parlaying that into your first job after school.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's incredible.
And I never meant to do that either. I just, honestly, I wanted to learn as much as I could, do as much as I could, and make an impression on the people around me, and then maybe take, kind of that experience with me. I never in a million years thought that somebody from an employee from a network news organization would call this college student and say, hey, do you want to be a part of something that I didn't even know
very cool
was an opportunity?
Did you interview for anything else, or was that like, this is awesome, I'm taking it, I'm going?
Yeah, well, I did take that, but what's funny about that is I had just accepted a job doing social media videos for a newspaper in Santa Monica, the Santa Monica Mirror, and I had informed them that I was taking this job. So I had my bags packed. I thought I was moving across the country. I'm from Florida, so I thought I was moving to Santa Monica. And then that call came in, and that was more something I wanted to do. Also, that show, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way, it aired in New York City and Philadelphia. So like coming out of college, I can't say no to something like that. And they understood. And I actually kept a good relationship with some of the people who did hire me at the Santa Monica Mirror. And we still talk today. And they were really understanding that, like, yeah, you got to take that opportunity. But also sprinkled into there were a million rejection letters. My college roommates at the time used to laugh because, believe it or not, it's like 2011, 2012. Some of my rejection letters came in the form of actual letters, like in the mail. So they would laugh, when they'd see like these TV station letters, like, here's another rejection, here's another rejection letter.
And I'm guessing they wouldn't send a physical letter to invite you to an interview.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So you get the letterhead from, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. I mean, most were in emails, but I do remember getting at least one from like this really small town in Iowa that was like a market. And I think it was like market like 180 or something like that. And, they passed.
Okay. Kate, did you ever get rejected from a job by letter?
No, but my favorite was an advertisement to buy their product. And then and it said, oh, by the way, never mind, we don't want you. I'm like, that sucks.
I've known you now almost a decade, and you've never told me that before.
Well, it's not like I walk around talking about jobs I was rejected from.
So my most embarrassing moment applying for a job, I spelled the company's name wrong in my my letter that I sent with my resume. I went back and looked at it. I was like, I spelled the company's name wrong. Well, they're not going to be calling me.
It's fine. I had sent out so many applications once that I know that I made the mistake of calling one station the wrong station and getting it confused with other applications. So.
I mean, when you're going through like Monster.com and Career Builder and all that, you're just pounding through these things, and it's like, okay, change a sentence, change the header. Oops, I spelled that company's name wrong. And it was some obscure name. It was like some Spanish company, and it was, it is what it is.
So you started with Fox. Where did you go from there?
From there, I kind of had I actually thought my career was over before it ever really started. After that, I had no plan. I had left the show just because it really wasn't for me. And then I just took as many freelance jobs as possible. I kind of got back into sports a little bit. I worked for Sportsnet New York as a freelance editor. And Sportsnet New York, SNY, is like this regional New York station, a sports station that airs like they aired Met games, for example. So like my main job was to edit Mets highlights. And I remember and I love sports, but I just remember thinking like, oh man, like I gotta get out of here. Like I gotta do something. I need to, I really still wanted to be a reporter and a correspondent. And, I was really just editing and taking whatever I could just really to pay bills and stay afloat and like build some kind of background. And then once again, somebody reached out to me from that first job I had. They ended up leaving as well. And they went to a startup production company and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And I think you'd be a great fit. And that was the best decision and best call I ever got, because not only was it for an on-air position, yet the stories were aired online and maybe they didn't get a ton of views, but still it was like exposure, and I was getting help from like some of the industry's best who had started this startup company. They got out of news and started a production company. And from there, I was really able to finally do on-air stories every single day. I was doing 3 stories a day, and they are terrible. When I look back at them, I mean, they're real bad. I don't even think I combed my hair for any of them, but I learned a ton. And then I was able to, kind of figure out, okay, like this was more like hosting than it was reporting. And I really wanted to do reporting. And then there were people there that had reporting backgrounds, and they helped me get in touch with some local news stations in New York, which was News 12, which is like this regional local news station that covers all the outer boroughs instead of Manhattan. So there's like there's Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, New Jersey. And I was able to work there. And then from there, that's where I finally got some stability in my career. So I was doing that as local news. And then from there just built, and I didn't have any issues where I was freelancing or picking up all these odd jobs anymore.
So then, you've been hanging around the New York area. What drove you to go to Portland?
Yeah, so I really liked reporting at News 12, and it was one of the best experiences I ever had. And I was really, first of all, you're reporting in New York City, and people who watch News 12 watch it because you're covering their borough, and you're really hyper specific, like you're really covering. So my area of coverage was Brooklyn and the Bronx. And a lot of people in the Bronx and Brooklyn feel like the big stations there neglect them unless it's some big crime story, where we are always pushing stories for those communities. So it's really nice because people News 12 viewers are very loyal, and they watch it because they are from these areas, and this is what they want. They want to know what's going on in their neighborhood. They really don't care what's happening in New Jersey or the Upper West Side. They want to know what's happening in Brooklyn, in the Bronx. And I was doing this is the first time actually I was really going live. Everything else I had done was taped up until that point. So I was really getting the experience of doing live shots. And then from there, I wanted more of an opportunity to enterprise stories and really kind of get more of an investigative and enterprise story background where I'm finding stories and pitching stories. And this opportunity came up in Portland, and I thought, you know what, that's out of my comfort zone too. And I didn't think that I would actually take the job, but after I did the interview and I met everybody there in the station, and they informed me like what the role would be, which was still reporting, but it was also crafting your own stories and not only doing breaking news. I thought to myself, like, that would give me a more well-rounded background and do something different than what I was doing at News 12.
That's, like I said at the beginning of the show, that's about the time we stumbled upon you. You were covering a Portland match, I believe.
Yeah.
And I mean, since Portland gained their franchise, I mean, they've always been for the most part, they've been always a top tier MLS club. I mean, I can't remember now. Were they? No, they didn't win the
They
MLS
had
Cup.
just won. So when I got there, they had just won.
Okay.
Um, so it was the year after. So it was like 20. I think they won in 2015. I was there in 2016.
And I mean, it's a very, very loyal fan base out
I
there.
couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm a soccer fan, but not really so much. I wasn't really so much an MLS fan, and I could not believe that this existed. I was fortunate enough when I was at News 12. New York City FC had just started. It was their inaugural year, and I got to cover their opening match, and that was really awesome because I saw like this buzz in the Bronx that I could not. I thought I was going to Game 7 of a Yankees World Series game. How many fans were out? But even then, I kind of figured like, oh, this might taper off. I mean, this is just the initial excitement of a new franchise. And in Portland, it's like that every match. I couldn't believe it. I mean, even in their general assignment, or general admission seating, people wait outside for hours, and depending on the match, they'll camp outside. And now I think they're expanding the stadium as well.
Yep.
I mean, if only, like, even if just a fraction of MLS franchises could have that kind of fan base and that sort of devotion. I mean, it's everywhere. People in Portland love the Timbers. I mean, it's everywhere. And it was really cool to see that and firsthand and be a part of that and like tell my friends, no, listen, this is a big deal. Like, they're like, oh, we don't care about soccer. I'm like, you got to see this on the West Coast, especially when they play in the Cascadian Cup against the Sounders. I mean, it's unbelievable how the city comes alive. You would think, again, it's like the Blazers playing in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
I mean, it's incredible.
What is the most memorable thing that you got to report on with the Timbers?
So unfortunately, I didn't get to report too much on the Timbers. I did, though, get to report on from courtside, too, when the Blazers played the Golden State Warriors. And that was really exciting. The Blazers got swept in that series, but it was a much closer series than people realize, and that was really cool just to see from start to finish, like how these guys warm up and how they go through just everything from their press conferences all the way up to the game, and to be on the court and see like Moda Center just kind of come alive even when the Blazers are down like 20 points. Was pretty cool. And just to watch Damian Lillard like up close, I mean, this dude is for real.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Amazing talent. I mean, I went to a Blazers game about 10 years ago, and this was still when like Greg Oden actually played in the game I went to. He didn't play in many games, but he was there, and we had LaMarcus Aldridge and Brandon Roy, and it was it was a very, very good team, and unfortunately injuries derailed them. But I mean,
I feel like they always get unlucky. Yeah.
And but the fan base is just incredible out there. It's just I love it. It's this little, not little, but it's a smaller market.
Yeah.
But I mean, you wouldn't know it. I mean, the community really gets behind their teams out there.
Yeah, you wouldn't think of Portland as a sports town, but it absolutely is, especially with basketball and soccer. I mean, those are two biggest franchises. They also have a hockey team too, the Winterhawks. That apparently I've never went to a Winterhawks match, and I kind of regret that. They play like right next to where the Blazers play, and you walk around Portland, I think they want an NHL franchise more so than a baseball team. But it really is it's a great sports town. I mean, the fans there are really passionate, and they really show up.
So I'm going to jump in, Kate. So after Portland, you had a chance to go home and back to South Florida. And we talked a little bit briefly at the beginning about your high school, and we didn't mention this, but I mean you're a graduate of Marjory Stoneman Douglas, which was the school that had the school shooting incident a few years ago, and you were there, covering. Were you there when that happened, or or was it just the aftermath?
Yeah, it was. I had only been on that job. I accepted the job for my like hometown station that my family grew up watching. It was like really a dream opportunity for me. And about a month in is when the shooting happened. And I had to go to my high school and report on it. And it was it was really difficult. I mean, those were difficult times because not only was not only was I reporting in areas where I used to walk to school, ride my bike, and now you have kids running out of the school and police everywhere. I mean, I could just, as a reporter, you report on these things from time to time, and it's really unfortunate, but you're always doing it, in areas maybe you're not from. And, this story didn't just hit close to home. This time it was home. And it was really challenging and difficult. But I will say that in the aftermath, what those kids did and what that community did to come together and, push for change in the way they did made me really proud. And it's just like, that is my hometown. And that is now when you talk about Marjory, Stoneman, and Douglas, that's what comes up first, is how these kids were able to do the March for Our Lives, which I got to go with them from Coral Springs to Washington, D.C. and just see all of this and that march on Congress, was really incredible. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, that was the most challenging day of my career. And I don't think that anything will ever come close to that again.
I can imagine. On taking a lighter note, a famous alum of your high school, I have to bring this up because the flag behind me is Anthony Rizzo from the Chicago Cubs. I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing you're probably pretty close in age.
We had class together. We graduated the same year. Yeah,
really?
we took Italian class together for 3 years in the same class.
Did you? I mean, you were in the same class, but did you know him at all?
A little bit. I wouldn't say we were friends, but our groups of friends definitely cross over. Some of my best friends that I still hang out with now may consider him a friend, but he was always a really nice guy too, a really smart, really bright kid. He played 2 sports. It's funny because, and maybe I just had my head in the sand, I always viewed him as a football player because I also played football for just a couple of years in the JV team, and he was on it, and his brother was the captain, and his brother actually went on to play at FAU, I think. I always viewed the Rizzos as a football family. I knew he played baseball, but it probably wasn't until my senior year I was like, oh wow, like this dude is real good at baseball.
I mean, did you once you realized that? I mean, did you, number one, did you expect to ever see him in the major leagues?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think people realized probably right after high school he was drafted by the Boston Red Sox, and the story goes, I wasn't there for this, but the story goes he had a family celebration party with friends and stuff. And again, this is just, I don't know if this is true or not, but the Red Sox, I guess, let him do batting practice at Fenway Park. So he had this video playing of him just hitting home runs in an empty Fenway Park and in batting practice. And then just the rumors, swirled around Coral Springs in South Florida that, oh, this guy is the real deal. And he is going to make it. And then of course he was traded to the Padres, and then to see him come up was huge. And also my town is very known for baseball too. Stoneman Douglas is a proud baseball program. I mean, there are players who have, sort of cracked the majors or sort of cracked college baseball, but nothing like Anthony Rizzo. So it was only a matter of time, really.
And, and just the second part of that, he was the guy who caught the final out to finally snap the Cubs World Series drought.
That's right. That's right.
It's just, it's hard enough being a Cubs fan to realize that drought is over, and it's now been over for almost 4 years, which is still blows my mind. But second, you sat in the same classroom as the guy who made the final out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even if you're not a Cubs fan, I'm assuming you were probably really pumped for him.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole day, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. I mean, I don't know about other, major sports stars, but Anthony is really a humble guy, and he does, his walk for cancer in Coral Springs every year, and the whole community shows up, and his charitable, the things he does for charity and for cancer with kids is really remarkable and fair and genuine. Honestly, I mean, it could not have happened. The success could not have happened to a nicer person.
Absolutely. I mean, he's always at the the Children's Hospital in Chicago, spending time with the kids. I mean, you can tell that like he wants to be there. He's not there because his contract
Right.
obligates him to make a visit periodically. He's there because he wants to be, and you can see the joy that he brings to those children, which is, I mean, it's you're right. Like he just seems like a genuinely very, very nice person.
Yeah, and the whole community is just so proud of him. I mean, we see it all the time, like on Facebook posts or our alumni groups and stuff. It's always about Anthony Rizzo in the most positive way.
It's very cool. So, Kate?
Is it time?
No, not yet. We've got another stop here.
So what career advice do you have for someone breaking into the TV journalism industry?
Yeah, it probably goes back to what I said a little bit earlier on internships and just opportunities. Just you have to be – the thing about this industry that I didn't really realize until I worked in it is the opportunities are very, very limited. I mean, if you think about it, and obviously it's not just local news. There are so many opportunities here. But if you're looking at reporting in local news, there's only 3 or 4 stations in a market, so the jobs are very, very limited. I would say you have to keep your options open. Almost, be willing to move anywhere early in your career. And don't worry, you can make it back to your home city or the city that you want to be or the platform that you want to be. But it's just, a lot of times it's just not going to happen, right out of the gate, right out of you graduate. I mean, it's not common really for people out of college to, just get their dream job immediately, right? Just like any other industry. So I would say just, establishing those relationships early on and getting those internships and those opportunities in your field. I mean, it could be copy editing, it could be production assistant, you could be a floor manager. It really doesn't matter, but I just do it, just pick up whatever you can and do it. And you're going to have to make sacrifices early on. I mean, I don't think I had a Thanksgiving at home actually really ever. For the last 8 years, I've always volunteered to work holidays and work the late night shifts and work the weekends and do things that maybe others aren't willing to do for personal reasons. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I always saw those as an opportunity. So, you really have to just kind of accept these opportunities and try to differentiate yourself from everybody else. Otherwise, you're going to have a much longer path. So I would say get all that work in really early in your career and keep those relationships. That's the one thing that I mentioned earlier that I kind of regret that I did not do. I did not keep in touch with these people who are now, they're superstars, a lot of them. Even the show I interned on Fox News, the host there went on to do bigger and better things too. And I lost contact with them as well. So just keep those relationships and just keep it authentic too. I think people can always, I can always sniff out people who are just reaching out to you because they want career advancement, right? Like, no, actually establish relationships. Be friends with your mentors or whoever else that you're interacting with on a daily basis. Because remember, they're trying to advance their careers too, and you never know where they're going to end up and who they're going to think of first when they are in a position of power or influence. And you want to be on that short list when they're thinking about people in the future.
Some very strong advice. So before we get into Kate's signature segment, I just want to step one step back here real quick and just talk real quick. I mean, obviously we talked about your being in DC and going to the White House, but you just joined that this year. One, how did that come up? And two, how did the pandemic, I mean, that you came in, I believe, at the beginning of this year,
yeah.
The pandemic, a couple months later. How has that impacted your adjustment in DC?
Personally, it's been difficult because I had just moved here. I don't know anything really about the district, and everything got shut down immediately, and that's something obviously everybody had to deal with. It added another wrinkle in the fact that, again, I don't know the area, so I didn't get to experience. I still haven't really gotten to experience DC on a personal level. On a professional level, everybody had to make an adjustment, right? Like now, we weren't allowed to go into the bureau because of coronavirus, just like everywhere else. And I had to start working from home a lot. And I was fortunate that I come from a production background. I mean, my first jobs really in TV were production assistant, editing. and I know my way around the gear. And that's another thing I would say too, for anybody looking to get into this industry. You want to know everything about everything, right? You don't want to just be reporting or writing, or you want to do it all. And you want to be able to know how to do it all. And so I was in an advantageous position in that when they told us, hey, listen, you're going to have to work from home, I immediately knew all the tools and things that I needed to do to get that done. And I actually own some of my own equipment as well, but I know my way around the equipment, and the reporting stayed the same, right? The writing and the reporting is all the same. The challenge was, how do you present it now with still a network quality from home? And that was certainly an adjustment for everyone, myself included. I mean, but I would say I think I had a jump start in that I already knew what I needed in terms of the equipment and the way to, broadcast these stories and some of the behind the scenes that people don't always see.
I mean, it's clear that, I mean, obviously paying attention to your Instagram page, we've seen for the last couple months, seeing you set up and have your set essentially from your home. But I see the back behind the scenes that you can clearly tell you have essentially a corner rigged up at home.
Yeah.
You take it and watch it on TV, and it's like, I have no idea you're at home. I mean, it's very clear that you've set this up, you've made it look good, like it was a studio.
Yeah, and that was not easy, and it's not easy, and it has all these different challenges, especially when you're doing it by yourself, because coronavirus, there's not going to be a producer or somebody that's going to be able to come to my house and help me. And that also goes back to, like, when I worked at News 12, I was what they call an MMJ, meaning not only was I the reporter, I was the cameraman too, and setting up all my stuff. So you do that for a couple of years, and it's like riding a bike, and it's like, okay, now I got to do it again, but at the network level. But still, I knew exactly what I needed to do, whereas maybe others needed a little more training, or there was a learning curve there. I feel like I was able to hit the ground running, and I think that is more attributed to just the past experiences of taking these jobs, and I saw them as opportunities, but taking these behind the scenes jobs early in my career that I didn't want to do. Like, I didn't want to be an editor, I didn't want to be a producer, but I did those things to get to where I am, and now it actually helped in what I'm actually doing.
That's again very good advice. So, Kate, you've been waiting patiently. We're going to turn it over to you for your 5 fun fast facts. Again, as usual, I do not know the question. I'm going to be as.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Let's go.
All right, let's hear this, Kate. What do you got for today?
Who is your hero?
Who is my hero? Sports or
just in general?
Yeah, I probably got to go Brett Favre, right? I'm a huge Packers fan, and I had everything Brett Favre growing up. Actually, up until I was like 13, my whole room was painted green and yellow, and that really started my love for sports, which I'm still very passionate about. So, yeah, I think also if you ask my mom, she wouldn't skip a beat and would say Brett Favre.
Okay. What 90s song is your jam to, like, get pumped up?
Yeah. Oh, man, there's a couple good ones. I'll probably just go with the one I heard most recently. I'm Blue by Eiffel.
Eiffel.
Is it Eiffel 95?
I think it's 65, isn't it?
65? Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, it's still a banger, right? Like, if that song comes on, I'm stopping everything I'm doing. And
okay, we all know about spirit animals, but what's your spirit dinosaur?
What?
My spirit dinosaur.
Oh
man, probably a velociraptor. I mean, those things are fast, they're vicious, right? And everybody wants to say the T-Rex, but I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, and it's always the velociraptors that get everybody. Those are the most intense scenes. So I'll go with velociraptor.
Okay. What are your feelings about garden gnomes?
Garden gnomes? They terrify me. What are they? Why? Why are they?
I know. And then finally, who or where would you haunt if you were a ghost?
Who or where would I haunt? I don't think I would haunt. I think I would just like mess with my friends, in very subtle ways that would make me happy. I wouldn't scare them. I would like to confuse them. I think I'd be a cool ghost, like Casper.
Okay.
You could be a friendly ghost. Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, those are my 5 questions, and it looks like DJ's never going to let me not run them by him ever again.
Well, you never run them by me. I mean, the only time you read, I've seen them beforehand where you accidentally wrote them on our script. But it's like, were you drinking before the show today?
No. Just came to mind,
Oh, man. Well, I don't know where to go from there. Guess this is a good time of any to wrap this up. Again, Andrew, thank you again for taking time to chat with us today.
Of course.
Do you have any, plug your social media? Where can we find you other than on TV?
I guess Instagram, Dymstagram is my Instagram handle. My last name, so DYM_Stagram. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I got a Twitter too, Dymburt News, if anyone's interested, or just, tune into your local ABC affiliate from time to time.
And it's, yeah, I mean, I'd probably see you on TV at least, every other week, at least once.
Well, good to know that the ABC was Phoenix, right?
The Phoenix affiliate seems to use your work quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I don't always know because every station's a little bit different. Sometimes they'll take our stuff and they'll repurpose it with their own local staff, but it's always cool to hear like which city, it pops up on.
It seems like when they go to a correspondent from somewhere else, whether it's DC or another city, they just kind of hand it off and let that person take charge and do the segment, so that the people here in Phoenix just they report on Phoenix, and if it's outside of it, for the most part, unless there's some Phoenix tie to it, they let the outsider or the other correspondent handle it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man. So again, Andrew Dymbert, ABC News. Check him out again on Good Morning America, the ABC World News Tonight. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love your page. Love your guys' work. And I'm a fan from afar. I will keep following.
Appreciate it. So, next time you end up in Phoenix for whatever reason, lunch is on me.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure Kate would have the same rule of next time when you finally come to Chicago. She can.
Chicago. Well, when I get to the airport.
Take you to Giordano's or Gino's East or whatever. I lived in Chicago for almost a decade. I'm just not Chicago pizza. I love New York, which is kind of ironic, but is what it is. So for everyone else, thanks for watching today. Check us out at stadiumscene.tv. Join our network. Give us a follow at Stadium Scene on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and Stadium_Scene on Instagram. And we'll see you next week.